Hi friends, hope you are doing well. I'm Dr. Ganguly. Welcome to my channel. So today we are going to discuss the outline of a typical research proposals. And as most of you know, research proposals are very important documents. They are important whether you want to get a grant from a particular body to fund your research if you are at a university or research center, or it could be also a proposal you write for a postdoctoral fellowship or even for a PhD itself. So in many cases, even if you are doing a PhD, you need to write some kind of research proposal, research statement, PhD proposal, and get that cleared before a committee before you can embark on the work. Now, one of the reasons the proposals have become very important is that it essentially lets you write a document which summarizes the reasons you are doing the research and the likely outcome of this particular research. And this is important not only for the scientific system but for you also, because if you do this kind of research proposal writing, then you exactly know what to do. So framing a problem in terms of research is one of the important things which PhD students unfortunately sometimes do not learn, because what often happens is that PhD supervisor ends up doing all the thinking about the proposal and they often just do the work. So this is not a good idea. Always try to figure out why exactly you are doing the work, and as far as possible write the PhD proposal yourself in conjunction with your supervisor. So let's look at the basic outline of a research proposal and look at all the different components. So essentially the first component is the table of content, and here you write out the table of content of the proposal in terms of the abstract, introduction, and so many of the other sections. So let's go through these sections now. Now the abstract is the first section, and this is the section where you introduce the problem and you provide motivation, and you also may give a sentence or two about the expected results which are going to have a significant impact on the field. So very often people will read the abstract very thoroughly, and sometimes they may not even read beyond this, because if they feel the impact of the problem is not sufficiently high, then it's not worth doing. So you may have heard, for example, of the Ig Nobel Prize, which are some of the research which are performed by people which do not have much impact, and so your problem should not be one of the contenders of these kind of prizes. Now the next section is the introduction, and the introduction includes a brief literature review of the topic. So again, you can simplify this literature review by citing one or two review papers and then a few papers which are very relevant to your field and on which you are going to build for your research. So material from these papers should be able to lead to the research gap which you then are going to fill in your particular research. Now the next section is problem statement, and in the problem statement you give the different hypotheses and the objective. So the hypothesis is essentially whatever statement you are going to prove in your particular work, and the different objectives are the expansion on the hypothesis as to what are the different aspects of the problem you are going to solve. So this problem statement is extremely important because this is coming out of the previous section on introduction, and this is the problem you are precisely going to solve in this particular research proposal. Now the next section is on research methods, and research methods depend on the fields. There are broadly qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods out there. So if you are somebody who is working in a qualitative type of discipline, maybe your research may involve doing a lot of interviews with people. It may involve collecting some data and so on. If you are into a more quantitative type of field, you may have to do statistical analysis. You may even have to do mathematical modeling of systems. You may have to do experiments to get results and so on. And sometimes there are research problems where these two type of things may be mixed. So increasingly, especially in the social science domain, there is a prevalence of mixed methods. So people may get some of their data from things such as interviews or surveys which they create, or even internet surveys, and then they may get the remaining data from actual measurements of different situations. So by combining these two, they may be able to form their research problem solution. Now I have seen, for example, in management departments, people do this kind of mixed method research also. Now then the next section is the timetable, and the timetable essentially lists out how you plan to do this research. So if this is a 1-year project, then you can give something like a quarterly action plan. If it's a 3-year project, then again you can give something like a quarterly plan if you are able to give that level of detail, or you may give something like a half yearly or even a yearly plan. So this makes sure that there is some idea about how your project is going to progress, and it's also going to help the people who fund you figure out as to what is the likelihood that you are going to actually be able to complete this work in the required time. Because sometimes if you are proposing something which is too ambitious, people are able to figure out from your timeline, and if it's something which is unfortunately not at all ambitious, then again they are going to figure it out from your timeline and they may not give you funding for that. So the right proposals are those which have certain level of ambition so that they are worth funding, but they are not such that the work is unlikely to get completed. Sometimes new researchers actually write proposals which are very ambitious and may not be possible to complete, so keep these things in mind. Now the next section is about expected results, and you have not yet obtained the results, but you can write about the expected results. So these are some of the likely graphs you are going to get, some of the data you are going to obtain, and from this what is the major conclusion you are going to get. So for example, if you are working on some field regarding drug discovery, maybe your expected result is that you are going to show that the particular medicine you are going to discover is going to help people in terms of reducing their blood sugar level or their blood pressure level, or it's going to mitigate some infectious disease. So these could be some of the expected results in a study. Now after this there are going to be some appendix sections, and sometime if you have given a proof or you have a list of equipments which you need, you can give all this information in the appendix section. So this is where people can come and look at some of the details if they are interested in doing so. Following this, there is the reference section, and this is where you give a few papers. Typically I would suggest give 5 to 10 papers, sometimes even up to 20 papers depending on the length of the proposal. But do keep in mind that you should always have some references in a proposal, because that shows that it's coming from previous literature. It's very unlikely that you are the first person who is going to be working on a particular research problem. Now sometimes people also put the cost breakdown for research at this point, so either they can put it here or in appendix section. In most proposals they have a template where they are going to tell you to put the cost breakdown at a certain point, and this is very important because whether you are asking for money for doing some kind of experiments, the different equipments you need, the money for travel to conferences, the money to support graduate students and so on, all this is going to come here in the cost breakdown. Finally, you need to sometime give a brief CV, and this CV is something which should be related to the proposal itself. So only list aspects in your CV such as papers and so on which are relevant to the proposal itself. You do not need to give your entire curriculum vitae here. And finally, sometimes you may also need to give the name of a few referees. So very often you may find 3 to 5 referees whom you need to give. Now one of the places you can very easily get these names are in the references of your own proposal. So whoever are the people you are referring to in your own proposal, they are probably the best references to give here. And also you may give different professors and researchers in your own country who can also be referees for the proposal. This particular aspect is very important. The referees will often make the case for your proposal, and so it's a good idea to spend a lot of time in thinking about who are the referees you are going to give for your project. So I hope this video is useful to you, and I will see you in a video sometime soon. See you then.